Hello, today what we're going to be looking at is we are going to be expanding our adventure program. And what we're going to be really learning about today are two things that we have done before, and we're going to expand a little bit on it. So the first thing I would like to talk about is functions or methods in Java. So all of these are called methods, and methods are the same as functions as if you worked in another programming language, but the idea between the difference is methods go inside of a class. So everything in Java is called a method. So if I happen to use the word function, just know that I meant method. So looking at this, we have looked at public, void, and then the name of our function every single turn of it, every single way we go. And then we have our parameters here that send things in. So we're going to look at a few things. We are going to look at what this really means today, the void. So void means the absence of something, so just like the normal definition. But this is what it is. What it is a return type. So in this particular case, it returns nothing. So we don't need to return anything. But we can add a variable in there, and when we call this particular method, in its place becomes whatever is there. So in this case, it's void. We could put an integer there. We could put a string. We could any type of variable that we really want to. So in our particular case, what we're going to do is we're going to be generating a random number. So we're going to simulate a dice roll, and we're actually going to simulate rolling two dice as if we're playing Monopoly. So we get snake eyes, we get a 12, but most of the numbers are going to generate are going to be 6, 7, and 8, mainly because that's how random numbers work. You have more combinations for that. So let's talk a little bit about that. So we're going to have a public int roll dice. And in my dice, I'm going to say what side dice I'm going to have. So if you've played something like Dungeons & Dragons, or I think Jumanji had an 8-sided die. So if you have ever played a game with weird sided dice, this will cover it. So in this particular place, we're going to have here an int called sides. And we're going to go here. Now, it's going to instantly give you an error because you're not returning anything. It wants an integer to be returned back. So if I just type in return 0, it satisfies it, but that's not really what we want to do. Instead, we want to create an integer in here called value. And this value is going to give us the value that when we roll a dice with blank amount of sides, that it shows up. So we're going to do a 6-sided dice real quick, and then we're going to expand it to be a little bit there. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have something that generates a random number. Now, math.random does this for us. Now, math.random generates a number between 0 and 1. Now, if you recognize this format from your math class, that's great. In pre-calc and calculus, they go over this, and if you want to know what it is, it's pretty simple. It means we include 0, but we don't include 1 in terms of our range. So we're going to generate a number between 0 and 1, and it's going to be a double. So if I try rounding these, if I try just casting to an int, it'll always be 0. So I do need to be aware of that. So what you're going to do is you're going to think about how many choices do we need to do. On a 6-sided die, there are 6 choices. If I want to try to generate a random number between 0 and 10, that's 11 choices. So know how many choices that you want to have. In our particular case, we want to generate numbers that go between 1 and 6. And then we want to include 1, and we want to include 6. This would be the same as writing from 1 to 6 like that. So what we're going to do to create this range is we're going to multiply by 6. So this, essentially, we multiply by each side, so we have 0 and 6. So if we were doing this, we were generating numbers between 1 or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's still not what we want because we want numbers 1 through 6. The way that you're going to fix this is you're going to add whatever this bottom base is to it. So you're going to find out how many choices you're going to have you're going to have however many choices you're going to have, and then you're going to add 1 to that. So if I wanted to generate a random number between 25 and 30, I would multiply by 6 because there's 6 numbers there, and then add 25. Now, there's going to be this error here that's telling you this, and that's because math.random is a double, and you cannot store a double as an int, so you'll need to cast it. So the way that you're going to do that, so you're going to do this right here, boom, int cast, and put a semicolon there. Easy. The next thing, what we're going to do is we're going to return value. Value is an integer, we're going to return it. This is very similar to what you're going to be seeing on the AP exam. You're going to do a little bit more, of course, when you do your free response, but when you see this int, you're going to make a int value, calculate whatever that value is, and then return it. That's very, very important. So we're going to have this roll dice example here. Now, in our program, we are going to display this. So I'm going to say roll dice 1. And to join this up, I'm going to do value up here. I'm sorry, not value. I lie. I roll dice. And I'm going to roll a 6-sided die. Right now, we don't use sides here. And the way we could change that is just by putting sides. And that will use this number here instead of the other one. So I run this. It's going to, of course, my computer is going to go a little slow, and it's going to run, and it shows that I rolled the dice and I got a 5. Perfect. I'm going to do this again. G.draw string roll dice 2. I'm going to put a space right here as well, so it gets a little further away from that. Roll dice. And it's going to be 6-sided. I'm going to put this in the same X, but I'm going to move it down a little bit. Roll this again. And I get now a 6 and a 5. Now, one of the hard things about this is you need to save these values. If I was going to do this, it's going to be an integer, and I'm going to say die 1, and that's going to be equal to roll dice 6. And die 2 equals roll dice 6. And this, because every time I call this, I'm generating a random number. I call roll dice, it jumps down here, does what it needs to do, returns the value to put it right there. So I want to save this because I'm going to add them together. So that we're going to have dice 1, or die 2. And I'm going to do another drawstring. And to get a total, and I'm going to do die 1 plus die 2. And this doesn't work, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. It's something that we're going to explore much further on, but I would like to give you the heads up on this. So we're going to roll this, and I did not make this drop down far enough. So let me change that up again. So now I have this roll die here, 4, 3, 43. That's not really how we add. It's just placing one die in front of the other to make 43. So when you're doing this, you're going to add the string plus a string becomes a string. So this is actually total space 4 at that particular example. And then it added it again, but it becomes a string, and they're putting them next to each other. We need a force order of operation. So an integer plus an integer is an integer opposed to a string. And if we do that, we end up getting now 5. So now this adds up. So this is how we're going to generate random numbers of between a certain range. And this is also how we do, return. These things are going to be very important in the upcoming weeks. So make sure that you fully understand this, and you'll get tons of practice. This is what the entire AP exam is really about. Well, good luck and happy programming. Have a great night. Bye.